public comment? Raquel, do we have anyone on the line? Anyone with a hand raised?
No, we do not.
Okay, beautiful. Moving on to item number 3, approval of prior minutes of September 3rd, 2024. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I've been making them lately, so I'll make a motion. We approve them.
Thanks, Woody. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, George. Call a vote on the minutes. Approved? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to old business, none. New business, architects review, response report. Justin, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. You can hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. So in the packet for the meeting, we've caught up on some weekly field reports. So I'll just give you kind of like a baseline. Over the last month, we've received 25 new RFIs and 72 new submittals. So still kind of in the crunch of the initial submittal process. But although that is starting to wind down as we're kind of getting through a lot of the CSI divisions. We have not many ATPs or PCOs, however you want to classify change proposals to review this evening, or at least mention, because there were 2 credits that were part of the review team. We continue to have FF&E meetings with folks in the district, as well as last Thursday, we also had a Playscape meeting as well as an IT meeting. So those are the kind of 3 buckets of additional funds, additional project funds that will be going through the similar PCR, FF&E, IT, and Playscapes. So likely, though we will be asking for the full approval of all of these, we will likely be tiering these to go through the state review. It's very common to handle IT in one meeting, Playscapes in another, FF&E in another. That way we can start to get the critical path items, which in this case are all of the network infrastructure and server infrastructure, so that can show up about the time that we need it to start livening the building management system. So all of that stuff is network based. We need to make sure that we have the network infrastructure, or at least the device end of the network infrastructure in place for then. So that will likely be the first one that's going through the state review process. So over the next several weeks, we'll be aligning budgets for all of these things and continuing to provide updates to this subcommittee with an eye towards late fall for approvals by this body as well as the BOE. Other than that, we continue to hold our weekly meetings and attend any pre-construction meeting as required as subs come up in the field with Gilbane and Colliers. So overall, we're still all friends, and we will continue to be. It's a good working relationship between the teams. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Hearing none, I'll move over to the SAM report. Robert, if you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now.
Yep.
So just a little different approach and image this meeting. What I did was kind of start off with the static image, which shows you on the right. This was as of August 15th. And then 1 month later, this is as of Friday. So as you can tell, we've been really gas pedal down and really trying to get the building going with the exterior now. And then just a couple highlights. I'll try to turn this. I think it even pivots, but.
Well, is it ever going to rain again, Robert? I mean, you got some incredible streak of weather here.
I know. Every time it pops up like it's supposed to, it just gets goes away. Never
Diagram.
Yeah.
So just obviously from the progress, you can see that we're basically moving out of structural steel at this point. The roof deck is substantially complete on the building. And then over here on the north elevation, we actually started the framing, sheathing, and the roof parapets. One thing I wanted to point out on this side, just before I drop the old image, is one of the things that kind of happens in the background and doesn't really get a ton of attention is this the moving of these topsoil piles. So as we've been working to finish up the GeoWells down in this back corner and establish the play fields in the back, we've been able to take a lot of this material that's been stockpiled over here on this north perimeter and kind of redistribute it. That's going to allow us to work into the north parking lot, which is critical for us just because of the fire line, the way the fire line comes in and some of the utilities. So this is good progress, even though it doesn't look like much, just moving around piles of dirt. This is really opening up some of the critical infrastructure we need to get down to the building. This is actually where the electrical comes in as well. So between fire protection for the sprinkler and the electrical to get over to the transformer, this is important work going on over here. I'm gonna drop this. Looking at the building, so a couple of things that may not have popped out is we did finish the CMU for the stairwell, and they actually started putting in the roof steel at this location. This is stair 2 on the north end. As well as we actually did install the pans and the miscellaneous metals required to install this stair. So we still have some work to go there to make it accessible and usable for the trades, but we're right on the heels of the steel with getting this stair installed. If you notice, we have wood blocking installed pretty much all the way around the perimeter of A. That's huge. It's going to allow us to start roofing by the end of this week. All these white bundles over here are the 2-inch insulation required for the roof. So we're going to get a little farther ahead with some of the parapet framing, but we have a big crew from Silktown ready to go end of this week. We're going to start putting down the vapor barrier, followed by the insulation and then the cover board, and try to really roll right through the roofing. As roofing wraps up and we can get it sealed to the parapets, that allows us to do the air water barrier on the exterior of the building. So that'll start immediately following the roofing. And then what that opens up is the actual brick exterior. So you'll see at the next drone in the next building committee, as I show the update, what you'll see is almost like a little bit of an assembly line that'll wrap around the building. You know, basically starting with the roof, then air water barrier, then right into the brick, and then last will be the windows and the glazing. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up, but I'll show you one more image. Lost it. All right, I got 2 fans. Actually, hang on. Yeah, I think I'm asking too much of my computer right now. But the last image I was going to share is going to go to the south side of the project. Yeah. On the south side, the one highlight we were going to show is that we started basing out the sidewalk or the parking lot area. So we finished up the storm drainage on the whole south exterior, and we actually started putting in the what we need to get the base established. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what happened here. Why I can't pull it up, but so that's also big as well. Kind of is allowing us to take our site crew, move from that south side, and move over to the north side. It gives us a little better use of the parking areas too. It allows us to spread out our trade parking, gets helps us with logistics as well. Outside of that, like Justin had kind of mentioned, big thing is I just wanted to thank the team, both building committee, Colliers and Tecton Architects, Tim and Justin for helping us out. Any items that have been popping up that we need direction on to keep that pace going with the project, we've gotten quick responses to. Anything we flagged as a priority, they've been very responsive and getting us answers and allowing us to move forward. That's critical, as you can see how fast the pace goes. Any little question, it may not seem critical at the time, but as a week or two goes by, next thing you know, it's right in the critical path. So the team's been working really well. We've been getting the information we need. Material's been showing up as expected, so it allows us to just keep the pedal down. One good piece of good news we received today is our DOAS, the main air handler for the middle of the building that basically supplies all the outside fresh air to the space. And it's a big unit. It's over 10 feet long. It's requires quite a bit of logistics to get it in the building. That actually pulled up from like an early January delivery to we're looking almost late November. So those 5-6 weeks really help us because it's going to pull it into as a totally different phase of construction and help us out with closing up areas that we would need to leave out for access for that unit 5-6 weeks sooner than we thought. So more good news. Hopefully the good news keeps coming.
Any news on the switchgear?
Switchgear is holding. So we're still looking at about that same time, mid-November ship. We have most of it. We have pieces of it. It's just our last pieces are still targeted. So what's been scheduled to ship has shipped on time. We're just waiting for those last two deliveries in November.
Excellent. I'll keep asking you every month until you get it.
Hopefully my answer doesn't change.
Exactly. I've been burned a few times, but this is not good. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Any other questions for Robert before we go to Adam? Oh, hearing on. Adam, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. So to add on to the points that Rob and Justin brought up, the team is also going through a series of sort of trade-related kickoff meetings. So, for example, on September 4th, we had our commission engagement do their envelope kickoff meeting. So, if you recall, BVH had a change order to their contract to add some testing on, and we have an RFP right now on the street for the rest of an envelope testing. So that kind of all bakes into this envelope kickoff meeting that BVH / Salos O'Brien held with the trades a week and a half ago or so. So that's something that Tecton and Colliers and Gilbane and the trades and BVH are all in the loop on to make sure that everyone's playing from the same sheet of music as we move forward into these new scopes of work that just seem to keep coming down the pipe with every update. Additional items, I know I've mentioned over the past couple of meetings, there are some additional procurement items that we're working on. So, for example, one of the things that needs to get coordinated is the fiber pull for the internet into the building. So that's scheduled, but we're also working through some of the other smaller components like copper lines versus Ethernet call out lines for the various infrastructure pieces. So we're working with Peter and IT and the various vendors on that to identify what exactly is needed, and if there are any obstacles, how do we work around those? So those are sort of, I don't want to say the last mile details because we're doing them now, but you got to think about them now so that way it's all set and ready to go for when you want to install the equipment. So those are kind of items that we're working on. And then, as Justin mentioned, we had a number of FF&E and AVIT and playground meetings. In addition to just fleshing out those bits of scope and picking chairs and looking at playground equipment and things like that, there's also the notion of budgeting, as Justin had alluded to, and kind of responding to what the current market is versus when we first budgeted the job, what we thought it might be and what equipment's available and timeframes and contracts and all that. So, for example, with the playground scope, a big emphasis that we had at our last meeting was on just inclusivity and accessibility for students, and looking at the various pieces of equipment, and not just from a code compliance standpoint, but what does the school see in terms of the student population and what would be good based on what the principal's seeing on the playground and what types of equipment that they're in need of or in want of versus just the initial thinking when we first developed the outline of scope for the playground. So those types of last mile changes, and then as we're building out furniture, looking at is there a TV monitor on that wall? This space is going to be used this way. How do we make sure that we buy the AV scope that aligns with the FF&E scope? Those components are things that we're going through. So you might see some requests come out of those meetings for future change orders to add a data port here or an outlet there or things of that nature. So nothing grave and drastic, and we're coordinating with Gilbane on that. But again, those are the types of items that we're ironing out now, so that way when the building opens, there's not a shucks, I wish there was XYZ thing here or there. So that's my update for today before we jump into procurement and the invoices.
Any questions on item number 4 before we go to 5? Nope, you're up, Adam. Number 5.
So pretty easy for tonight. There are no items up for vote. Both of the things I'll show here, I've mentioned in the email to you all that these were items that were approved on an expedited basis based on the desire to not hold up release of materials. So you see my screen here. The first one, again, no vote, was approved by Peter and George, was a credit. In fact, they're both credits, so it's continued good news on that front. The first one is a credit for just over $6,000. This was for a change to door hardware, where in coordination with the other schools and looking at the code, the closers to doors throughout the building, I think it was just over 60 closers, were not ultimately needed or desired, and it would save on maintenance, and it's just something that we didn't that the town didn't need to put into the building. So the labor and materials for that saved about $6,000. And then the other item that was approved on an expedited basis, well, that's the invoice packet, was a change to the light poles. The ATP is still being finalized for that, so that's why the packet included just an email for that one. But this was going to be a credit for at least $10,000. Based on the original scope, there were some light poles that were steel, they were taller, and some light poles that were aluminum. The aluminum has the benefit of being less corrosive potential. The steel is stronger. Talking about it with Peter, he has had some light poles that didn't perform as well if they were tall and aluminum. So the desire was to go to steel throughout the site, which also yielded a savings. Because those bases are integral to the site work, and because the poles take a long time to manufacture, that was something that was approved on an expedited basis. But again, should yield a credit for at least $10,000 when it's all said and done. So that change was approved in between the meetings here. Any questions on either of those two items?
And we're gonna get shop drawings of the actual pole light poles when they actually come in.
Right, that's something that's required as part of the spec for the anchors and the poles come with product data and engineering sign offs as part of the specs and all that. So yes. If you like, we can roll right into the invoice packet unless there's any other change order questions. Okay. So for agenda item 6 for the invoice packet, there's a lot of items on here, but they're mostly from our testing lab, who seems to bill in bunches. Monthly invoice from Gilbane for just over $2 million. That's pay application number 6. As well as the monthly invoices from Colliers and Tecton. We've got BVH, a couple of their invoices for some of the kickoff meetings and inspections for geothermal and those items. Langen, this is their second to last invoice. We did receive the final closeout report for them. So there's one final invoice that should be forthcoming for, I think it's just over $200 or something like that to clean up their contract. So they're almost done with invoicing. And then a handful of invoices from our testing agent for a grand total of just about 2.18 million.
Is there some reason why they bill so frequently on the same date? They have different, these are different trades they're testing for, or?
I can't necessarily speak to their invoice patterning. You can see that some of them were from June and then kind of some of them for September. So it seems like they kind of remember that they need to invoice a bunch and then they send out some invoices. So we go through and we check the sign-in logs and check all the reports are there. It's just if they typically we don't ask too hard if people want to get paid, they ask to get paid. And then so unlike Tecton or Colliers that has or Gilbane has a sort of a monthly cadence, it may be just when they get their particular inspector puts in all their time and all of their mileage and cleans up their financing, they submit when they can. So
Okay.
a little more chaotic.
Run rate, whatever. I know you had allocated some funds for them, so.
Right.
We work with Tri-State on a couple other jobs and have seen something similar. I don't know that you, the first owner who's asked that question, Graham, but why are they billing bunches? But they seem to.
Got it. Okay, as long as you're checking them against the sign in, et cetera, and then
Yep.
and not going over the budget, so I don't see a problem with it, but.
At some point, we will need to allocate additional funds
Yeah.
as part of that hourly release, but we'll advise when that needs to happen.
Got it. So I guess we're ready to make a motion on that to approve the, when you pull up your, or somebody just
Oh,
stop
sorry,
screen
yes.
sharing. I don't know, we lost you on that.
Yep, I'm sorry. I accidentally closed out of the
Yeah,
motions here.
I sense Sharon's itching to make a motion here. I'm just. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'm on vacation on my phone. Someone else is gonna have to do it.
Oh,
I'll do it.
okay,
Motion to approve invoice packet dated 9/16/24, including invoices from Colliers, Tecton, BVH, Langen, and Tri-State in the amount of $120,937.16. And construction pay requisition number 6 from Gilbane in the amount of $2,063,290.45 for a total approval of $2,184,227.61.
thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank Woody. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So moving on to next, public comment. Raquel, do we have anyone in the public with their hands raised?
No, we do not.
Got it. Moving on to number 8, remarks. Any remarks in general? I do have one update that I'll provide, but let me ask if anybody else wants to make any remarks. So, yeah, okay. So I updated the Board of Selectmen just as they asked me to just jump on a call because they had a slow news night last week on their agenda. So I just kind of updated them where we were, construction, pretty much pro forma stuff. Peggy did mention at that meeting that she probably will be asking for us to return the $3.5 million they had transferred over based on potential needs on the Polson project. I don't think they have the final budget, but they're probably going to officially ask for that money back. Talking to Adam, it appears we still have that in the contingency, and when they moved it over, we agreed that before we spent any of it, we would ask their permission or ask their blessing on that. So it appears it's not finalized yet, but I think that's probably going to happen in the near future. So it's going to be a little. We still have the contingency that we probably had before, and hopefully it's enough. But they're probably going to be looking for that 3.45 back. So I just want to let everyone know. I mean, I think we've been pretty judicious about spending the money, anticipating this might happen. So just giving everyone a heads up. And I know the question you're going to ask, Woody. So, but we'll figure that out later. We are making sure that whatever, no matter what, that the building is solar ready, the roof is solar ready. For whatever, if we have to do it after the fact, we just want to make sure everything is prepped for it, and et cetera, et cetera. So, we'll get you, one way or the other, we'll get you your net zero building. Any other comments, questions? Motion to adjourn if someone feels so inclined?
I'll do it.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. We have a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, what do you, just make it simple? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your
Okay.
evening.
Thank
Take
you.
care.